a geek. Talking baseball every week. 'Cause they're Gleeman and the Geek.
And welcome to Gleeman and the Geek, the What a Great Last Weekend of Baseball edition. This is exactly what Major League Baseball was hoping for with all the wild card races and such.
Yeah, except for the Twins, there isn't any.
Yeah, but, well, it's actually a great weekend to be in Colorado or Denver. I mean, that's a great place to... As a fan, that would be a great road trip to go visit.
Yes.
I like Coors Field very much. I like Denver very much.
The Twins don't like it.
No, I bet they don't.
They're annoyed. Not annoyed. I mean, it is what it is, obviously.
Right.
But it's, A, to do a 3-game road trip for your last series is annoying.
Right.
B, I know it's not going to like California, but going out to the West Coast and then coming right back to play a playoff game is annoying. And then beyond that, Coors, just as an environment, because it's a mile high or whatever, and there's altitude, it affects the pitching you see. Yep. And so the hitters are going to have 3 games. They're going to have 100 at-bats versus, flatter breaking balls and worse fastballs, and then they're going to come back for the most important games of the season. Yep. There's also just like from a rest standpoint, it's mile high is, altitude is worse on you and all that. Now, it's only 3 games, and they're going to rest some guys and all that. But it's less than ideal. It's one of those things that in March you look at the schedule and you go, we did this.
That's a great way to finish this season.
Right. Like, it's a fun road trip for fans, but also the Rockies were sure to be terrible.
Yes.
And so we looked at, finishing with the Angels, the Athletics, and the Rockies. You couldn't draw up an easier, and it did turn out that way, even easier than we suspected. But as an environment, it's not a great spot to have a tune-up, particularly with some injured players. And a lot of question marks in terms of role, because they are going to try to get some guys into games here. But, it's all right. It's not ideal, but
cheap flights to Denver because of Southwest Airlines, so it's easy to get there and easy to get from the airport in there. You can just take the tram into downtown, and you just stick around downtown for 3 days.
Well, yeah, you're looking at it from the standpoint of a drunk fan. I'm talking about the actual baseball team that has to come back here.
Yeah. When whatever, they'll be fine.
I almost just said, John, they don't take Southwest, but I realized you were talking about. So since we last spoke. This is going to be weird because, since we last spoke on the free show, which is once a week on Fridays.
They clinched.
I was in the celebration. We talked all about this stuff, by the way, on the Patreon podcast.
Yes.
So we're not going to get super into, the clinching. I could maybe mention a few things. But by
the way, if you sign up for the Patreon, you get those past episodes for free.
The archive is totally free.
That's right.
So they won their 3rd division title in 5 seasons under Rocco Baldelli. 4th time going to the playoffs in 7 seasons under Derek Falvey as a front office regime. But then now, so that's what a lot happened since last time. Rocco Baldelli has 2 more children since last time we spoke. Let's see, what else? That's about it. That's enough. That's plenty.
Kenta Maeda's in the bullpen. We got some injury updates on everybody, obviously, so I'll get into that in a second. But then also this next... between now and our next free show, which is next Friday, we will go from, as of right now, we don't know who the Twins are going to play in the first round. Right.
And then by the time we next speak on this free show, 1 week from today, the first round will be over.
Yes.
It's a very strange place to record a podcast where you can't really preview the matchup.
We don't even know what time the matchup's
We don't even know what time. It'll be Tuesday. That's it. That's all we know. It'll be one of 3 teams, but we don't really. It's looking likely to be Houston, but not necessarily Houston. Could be Seattle or Toronto also. Texas has basically played their way out of the wild card mix.
Although last night they failed to knock out. Did you see that ending in the Texas-Seattle game? Oh,
I did.
My God.
But it doesn't matter. For the Twins' purposes, they wouldn't be playing Texas anyway. Even if Texas fell back into the wild card.
They would fall back into the second wild card.
They wouldn't be in the third. So, it's very strange to be like, well, we don't yet know who they're playing. And when we reconvene here next Friday, the whole series will be over.
Right.
So we're going to attempt to preview as much as we can, but this will be more of a kind of a standard show with some news and notes. And obviously there's a ton of key injury updates. And then, like you mentioned, some role change updates that are equally key, potentially. Some guys who have already come back from the IL. Brock Stewart, Chris Paddock. We can talk about that. They've both come off the IL and pitched since we last spoke. But this, I will incur, if ever there was a time
to join our little private club podcast,
right, yes.
which we call the Patreon podcast, which is Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. We will definitely be doing a Monday show, Monday morning.
Yeah, where we will preview.
Where we will actually preview, because Sunday night, we're going to find out for certain who they're going to play, what time it is, and all that. So we'll have the show Monday that'll kind of serve as our real preview.
The National League, by the way, might not know at that time, Sunday night, whether or not who's playing and when they're playing, because the Marlins may have to make up a game on Monday now versus the Mets.
Yeah.
Oh.
So annoying. Although it might not matter.
It might not. But
and then the game is Tuesday. So depending on the time, we could do a show Tuesday morning. We will certainly do a show either late Tuesday or very early Wednesday talking about game one.
Yes.
And then we will repeat that essentially for however many playoff games the Twins play. We are going to have recaps, and then on off days we'd have previews sort of or news and notes. We'll be ramping up the Patreon. And so if waiting between now and next Friday for a show and basically having the entire playoffs potentially played out, hopefully not, but played out in the downtime there is not appealing to you, come on over to the Patreon. We'll have at least 2 or 3 shows this week minimally.
Yes.
Maybe a lot, significantly more. We'll see how things play out. Right. So, and you're only charged for new episodes. So if you sign up, if on whatever day we put out an episode, costs you $1.
Right.
That's it. $1. And if there's a day we don't put out an episode, doesn't cost you anything. And you get the entire archive, which is hundreds of episodes now, for absolutely
ad free.
Yes, commercial free.
Yep.
And we're almost at 4,000. So if you're saying to yourself, boy, that sounds really nerdy, I don't want to sign up. Who else is in that? Well, about 4,000 people.
4,000 other nerdy.
So we would love to have you join us for the last weekend here and then the playoffs. Again, Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. Come on over, join our little private club. Commercial free. Once in a while, there's a curse word, a little more in-depth talk on specific games, which works out great for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. Okay, so I don't know. It's looking likely, like I said, to be the Astros. It could very easily be Toronto or Seattle, who staged I watched the late inning comeback against Texas, walked it off with 2 outs in the ninth. They loaded the bases against Aroldis Chapman with no outs.
Right.
Chapman gets pulled. Then Seattle has 2 terrible, unpactive at-bats to get 2 outs.
Pop-up outs.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then J.P. Crawford, who's one of their best players, their shortstop leadoff guy, I think 2 strikes on him too, lined a walk-off double over the left fielder's head, skipped up against the wall. So that was fun. So they're
Just missed it, by the way. Left fielder was off by a foot or 2.
Yep. So that's where that is. I mean, I think Dan Hayes and I did a little back and forth for this morning on The Athletic, just about, who should they want to play, or who should fans want the Twins to end up playing? And we both kind of came to the same conclusion, which I suspect is the conclusion you would come to, which is my answer was not the Astros.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And,
anybody but Houston.
I mean, first of all, they're defending champs. It doesn't take a genius to be like, let's avoid the team that just won the World Series. Right. Second of all,
they've been the bully in the American League for
10 years,
and basically made the ALCS every year for the last 7 years.
They've been dominant for almost a decade now.
Right.
Also, I've seen a best of 3 series at Target Field against what people thought was a more vulnerable than usual Astros team before.
Yes. Yeah.
And it didn't go well for the Twins. And that team was sub 500 in the short 2020 season.
That's right.
And it still didn't matter. The Twins got swept in 2 games. So also, just big picture, some of the things we've been talking about over the last month or so is like stylistically, not even so much just individual matchups and all that, but what should the Twins want to play and what should they be trying to avoid? And if you look at the Twins lineup, their strength is left-handed and switch, but left-handed hitters. So they should want to face a team that is mostly right-handed starting pitchers. Well, the Astros have Framber
their number one
Valdez
pitcher is a left-handed.
is one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball. Whereas if you look at Toronto and Seattle especially, it's just all righties. Now, they're really good righties.
Yes.
Kirby and Gilbert and Castillo for Seattle, and then Gaussman and old friend Jose Barrios and Chris Bassett for Toronto. but mostly righties in the rotation for those teams and mostly righties in the bullpen for those teams. So theoretically, for a Twins lineup that has, kind of feasted on right-handed pitching, especially in the second half, because you've got Polanco and Kepler and Wallner and Julian, and, they just have much better left-handed hitters because some of the right-handed hitters have been either unproductive or hurt. So that's stylistically a better matchup. But then the other thing, you flip that around, is, well, what is the Twins' pitching strength? Well, the only lefty, I think, who's going to see anything resembling a key spot in a playoff game is Caleb Thielbar.
Right. That's right.
So their rotation is going to entirely be right-handed. Right. And so just from a basic platoon standpoint, you'd want to face lineups that have as many righties or a high proportion of righties as possible. Right. Well, again, you look at Houston, they have two of the best left-handed hitters in the world in Alvarez and Tucker. Right. Tucker's is he a switch hitter or lefty? So it's the same thing. And you look at Toronto and Seattle, they have a couple of lefties, but for the most part, the big boys in those lineups are right-handed.
In the same way that the Twins have been talking all year about how they can't hit lefties and how they needed to acquire, more right-handed power hitters. Seattle's been talking all year about the opposite. They've been talking about how they can't hit righties. They have trouble with hitting righties. And they need a left-handed corner outfielder or something like that. That's why one of the talking points back, like just before the trade deadline, was maybe Kepler goes over to Seattle for a right-handed version of Kepler.
It's good they didn't do that.
No, it's a good thing they didn't do that. Yeah.
So that's, and then beyond that, with so just stylistically, the Astros are the poorest fit for what. Yes, the Twins' strengths and weaknesses. But then you go, well, okay. Also, the Astros has some pretty good righties too. Yeah, Justin Verlander, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, and on and on and on. And so you toss in the World Series aspect and everything. And look, the Astros are in this mix because they haven't played particularly well. Right. I mean, they're in the mix for a third wild card because they've played to that level. But
they could miss out on the third wild card, right?
But none of that really matters. The bell rings for the playoffs, and it's like, well, what comes out of that corner ready to fight you? Well, nobody cares what the win total is. You're still looking at all those names that we just mentioned. And so I think it's, to me, the gap in quality of opponent specific to the Twins between like Houston and either Seattle or Toronto is much bigger than the gap between like Toronto and Seattle.
For sure.
In my opinion.
Oh, no, I agree with you.
So, yeah, I guess I would order it. I would prefer to play Seattle. I think they're the weakest team just overall, but I think specific to the Twins' strengths and weaknesses, they're the weakest team. Toronto then, to me is slightly better in part because I trust their bullpen a little more, and also they have a couple of lefty starters that they could potentially work into the mix against the Twins. And I just think
Kikuchi
and Ryu. Yeah. And I also just think they have a better line, like more quality hitters just overall. Yeah. So, and then Houston. And I'm not going to include Texas because that's such a long shot. And so, yeah, I would order it. Who do the Twins want to play? Seattle, small gap. Yeah. Toronto, large gap. Houston, basically.
Yep.
And of course, as we sit here, the most likely opponent is Houston. Yeah, but I will say this, even if you want to avoid Houston, and it's looking more likely now after last night. We'll see how it plays out. Verlander is scheduled to start Saturday.
Yeah.
And all you really need at the most basic level is for those games to matter to the Astros, for them to have to win those games.
Right now, the Astros are one game in front of Seattle. They're one game behind Toronto. And the Astros have 3-game series at Arizona versus the Diamondbacks, who is also in battling for the last wild card spot in the National League.
Decent team that needs to win.
Yeah, so Arizona is a good team that also needs to win. These are going to be critical games to both sides.
And so the reason that's important is if those games don't matter for Houston, they'll just skip Verlander and he'll be lined up to either start game 1 or game 2 against potentially the Twins in the playoffs. Correct. However, if Verlander is needed to start Saturday, which looks pretty likely, then he's not going to be available unless they really go on short rest with a 40-year-old, which I doubt it.
They'd either go on short rest where he pitches Wednesday, the second game, or he'd go hit normal rest and go Thursday, the third game. And that's questionable because Valdez, right? If he is going to pitch at all this regular season, it's going to be on short rest on Sunday.
Right, which would be very short. It would only be 2 days rest. So I think
3 days. He pitched
game 159.
He pitched
but
game
they had
158.
You're right.
Yeah. 150. Okay, right.
So it'd be 3 days rest. You're right.
That's right.
So yeah, it's possible you see he's not going to start Sunday, but it's possible you see him coming in relief Sunday,
And then
which would then rule him out seemingly for game one.
Well, I mean, absolutely for game one, and it might rule him out for like he'd have to pitch on short rest on game 3.
Well, yeah, but if he just throws an inning or two as
I see what you're saying.
it's on his
I got
bullpen day.
you. Yeah.
But and so that's what even if it ends up being the Astros, which is likely, I forget what the percent, but it's over a 50% chance that the Twins are going to face the Astros. Might be a lot over a 50%. You want them to have to exhaust their 2 ace level pitchers because the rest, part of the reason that they're in the position they are and trying to fight for a wild card spot is that the rest of their rotation, which has been a strength for so many years, has kind of fallen apart because of injuries and poor performances. And so the gap between Valdez and Verlander, who are, well, first of all, multi-time Cy Young winning Hall of Famer, who's still at 40, is not at the level he was, but he's still pretty damn good. And then Valdez, who's like perennial top 5 Cy Young and a lefty. The gap between those two lining up for game 1 and game 2 in some order versus, here's the thing, if Valdez pitches and can't pitch till game 3, well, they can't both start game 3.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So there's the potential. There's a very wide range.
Verlander on short rest on game 2, and Valdez.
Or you're looking at just facing one or the other instead of both in a 3-game series, which that's a huge difference in terms of the overall quality of what we're looking at with Houston.
Yeah.
Houston with those guys lined up to start the first 2 games is incredibly scary.
Right.
Houston with whoever in the first 2 games and then one but not both of those in game 3 is just a different story. Now I still might try to avoid them because their lineup is scary.
Yes, I agree.
But it's a little bit different story. So that's kind of what you're rooting for down the stretch. For the Twins, I mean, they're going to try to win these games in Colorado, but Correa is not going to play. Lewis is not going to play. They're not even going to Colorado, those two.
Okay.
Buxton isn't going to Colorado, obviously. Sonny Gray's going to Colorado. I'm not 100% sure about Pablo Lopez, but they were basically given the option. They could stay or go. So that's the drama if you want to do some scoreboard watching. It's unfortunate, like because Cleveland was so terrible, which they might finish in 3rd now, by the way.
Yeah.
Because Cleveland has been so terrible, it robbed the Twins of any sort of drama within the division. There wasn't even really scoreboard watching for the last 3 weeks of the season, but now for the final weekend, there's scoreboard watching just in the sense of
who are you going to play?
Who are you going to play?
I mean, there's also still a not insignificant chance that the Astros just don't make the postseason. They are just 1 game up on Seattle. Seattle's playing Texas, so that's no easy series. Right. But Houston, like you said, is playing the Diamondbacks, and if they tie Seattle, Seattle has the tiebreaker.
Yes.
So if basically Houston goes 1-2 versus the Diamondbacks, and Seattle goes 2-1 versus Texas, Houston would be out of the playoffs. I mean, provided that. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays, who are also in this mix a little bit, are playing Tampa, which doesn't have much.
Although Tampa has nothing to play for.
Is the East decided?
Yes,
They
clinched yesterday or the day before.
Yeah,
Baltimore
okay.
did.
Right.
So that's what the wild card situation is. And I actually asked. This was like the question I was asking everyone post game yesterday, or even pregame. Baldelli, Sonny Gray. I asked some other people. Does it limit what you can do in terms of preparation and scouting and planning when you literally might not know until Sunday night? And Baldelli basically said, look, yes, we'd rather have the most time possible to prep this stuff, to go over matchups and tendencies and all that. But he said, I mean, our scouting department is scouting all possible matchups. And so the reports that they're going to file from the scouting perspective, 2/3 of the scouts are going to file reports that go in the paper shredder. Right. So that stinks for them. But from Baldelli and the players' perspective, they're just going to get handed a full scouting report on Sunday night of their opponent. And so you got a little time. And, it's not like football where there's, you got to study their plays and you got to do all this stuff. I mean, there is you'd like to have an extra day or two to go over this stuff. And Sonny Gray pointed out that for him, he's starting game 2. He's got plenty of time.
Yes.
I mean, he'll know on Sunday night, and he's got 2 days basically to figure it out. And even Lopez will have a day. But so, that's where the Twins are at. I think,
should mention the NL wild card is even crazier, by the way, than the AL wild card, too. That's going to be.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
It's going to be fun to watch.
I don't care. The Cubs are screwing themselves up, but
they are
who cares
absolutely
about
screwing themselves.
It could, I guess, affect the the TV times.
Yeah.
If the Cubs are out of it.
Listen, I got 12 questions
Don't
about
do this
today.
because it's going to happen. You're going to this is another third show you've laid this out. It's meaningless because it's going to. Yeah, if the big markets are in, the Twins are not going to be the night game.
Well, except there's 2 night games. There's a 6 o'clock game and a 9 o'clock game.
Silly. It doesn't matter. Like you lay these out, and it's like it doesn't. Yeah, we get it. The big teams play over the Twins. How many big teams are in determines when the Twins will play.
The question is like, who's going to be the 9 o'clock game, right? Because it's going to have to be the Diamondbacks, right?
We don't even know that there is a 9 o'clock game, John.
There is. There's a 3, 6, 9, and 1 o'clock game. That's the time. That's the times that ESPN has games scheduled for.
But yes. But there's going to be a West Coast team that's going to play the 9 o'clock game, no matter who it is.
Yeah, but there's only one West Coast team right now.
Well, there's only one 9 o'clock game.
Right. So that means the National League is going to be the 9 o'clock game. So I think, I mean.
Right. That's what I just said.
Right.
That's why I said there's no 9 o'clock game in the Twins realm. Highly unlikely.
Well, I mean, unless it's Seattle that they end up facing.
Yeah, except I bet it would be Arizona anyway.
It might be. I mean, Arizona isn't in either, but yes.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to learn Sunday night. I'm just saying we're sitting here on Friday. By the time people listen to this, the scenarios are going to completely change anyway. There's going to be a playoff game Tuesday. I know people are like, they're coming in town to see the game. Like, yeah, well, plan on being here.
Yeah, it's either going to be
Monday night.
It's most likely going to be 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock is the answer. Right.
This has been the case for 2 months. That's all I'm saying. There's no need to go over the scenarios. Okay. Also, as of right now, the Twins are, let me do the math, 40-28 since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
Which is the second best record in the American League. The only team with the better record is Baltimore, which has 100 wins and just clinched the number 1 seed. That's a 96 win pace, 95 win pace. I don't want to do the math. I'll let you do the math. And also, they hit the over.
Yeah.
83 and a half. They hit the over.
85 right now.
Yeah. They could win as many as 88. But
86, 87 probably.
Also, there's a decent chance now, which didn't look likely a couple of weeks ago, that no matter who the third wild card is, the Twins have as good or better record than the third wild card, which at least removes the narrative of they got to abolish divisions because the Twins had one fewer win than the team that got left out or whatever, something like that. But yeah, so that's where the Twins are at. We wish we could go a little more in depth on this show and talk about Houston and I mean, we could do it, but I just would feel silly if 48 hours from now
it's
like
being the Blue Jays.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean,
and doing 3 teams just is equally silly. But like I said, join the Patreon. We'll have a full breakdown Monday. We'll go through, all the matchups. We'll know what the pitching situation is. We'll know better what the roster situation is. Although I will say with the Twins, they have a workout day Monday afternoon. The roster itself doesn't have to be submitted until like 9 a.m. Tuesday morning, basically, or 10 a.m., whatever it is, a couple hours before the first game. And so the odds of knowing with certainty Monday morning about like Lewis, Correa, Buxton, some other decisions is very low. I mean, we could maybe have a sense. I think even the odds of knowing like Monday night are not going to be certain because they're going to – I can already picture the quote from Baldelli. Well, we'll see how everyone comes in the morning.
Yes, exactly right.
And, yeah, there's some truth to that. When you're really – especially with Royce Lewis, it sounds silly, but like every hour at this stage it matters. And maybe not every hour, but every 12 hours, let's say, matters. Like, for anybody who has an injury, a strained hamstring, a twisted ankle, whatever, it's like there's going to be a day – in the recovery process where you're going to wake up and you're just going to feel better. And they're at the point where they're hoping the next day is sort of that day. Right. And so the further you can kick the can down the road. Now, we talked to Royce on, I don't know, I've lost all sense of days, but a couple days ago. Yeah. And he was optimistic, but as we've talked about with Royce before, he's always optimistic. Right. Now, they were more I will say the Twins kind of off the record and behind the scenes folks seemed more optimistic, seemed a closer match to his optimism than they did like 5 days earlier.
Okay, all right.
For whatever that's worth.
Sure.
But I do think if he's on the roster, it'll be as a DH.
Okay.
I think his chances of
playing in the field,
being able to swing are up in the air. His chances of being able to play the field and run full speed are nil. Like it's just there's not enough time. This is an injury that we're looking at it and saying, can he be ready by Tuesday? The only reason that's even the talking point is, well, Tuesday's when it's happening. And so normally that wouldn't even be in the timeline. It would be, can he be ready 10 days from now?
Right.
And so you're forced to, shrink down this entire window here where it matters, except that's not how injuries work. It's not like you can say to the injury, hey, Mr. Hamstring, I've tried this with my knee. Hey, Mr. Knee. Hey, Mr. Hamstring, plan on being ready for Tuesday. The hamstring will be like, yeah, which Tuesday? 2 Tuesdays from now, I'll be ready. So that's where it's at. Now, fortunately for them, and we started to see this with the defensive alignment the last few days, or last handful of games, Julian's defense has improved at second base from when they first kind of did that experiment with Polanco at third base. So my guess is if Lewis is on the roster, he's your starting DH. Julian will be playing second base. Polanco will be playing third base. Offensively, it's the same, assuming Lewis can swing.
Right.
I mean, those 3 guys are going to be in the lineup for game 1 against a right-handed pitcher, at least, no matter what. Defensively, it's certainly a downgrade.
Right.
And the scary part to me, I don't know that it's a downgrade. Like if you hit them each 10,000 ground balls, I don't know that the downgrade is like massive. It's a downgrade. But in the playoffs, it's like those guys are just much more prone. Julian at second and Polanco at third, where he's barely played.
Right.
There's just a much higher likelihood that alignment
goes wrong.
Something, just a brain fart
Similar
or a bad
to 2020 Polanco at the shortstop.
Right. And so, over the course of 162 games, the difference between Lewis at third and Polanco at second versus Julian at second might be 5 runs, 10 runs, which you can, over 6 months. But one bad play could be the whole thing, and the likelihood of that, I think, is just higher.
Before we get on to, let's cover some more injury news, but before we do that, let's quickly check in with a couple of sponsors. First, Soda Stick. Walking around Target Field the last 3 days, I can't tell you how many Soda Stick T-shirts I still saw, and it's going to be nice and warm. It sounds like for the first round of series here.
Yeah,
perfect for some Soda Stick T-shirts. You may be able to grab one here before this begins. Otherwise, they've got these great fleeces on sale for the second round, or for going to Gophers games, or for going to Vikings games, or tailgating before Vikings game. We got these vintage fleece crew neck and hood and sweatshirts with some of their best-selling designs, like blown out of the dome, and a bunch of their other little clever designs that they've got.
And if you use the promo code Gleeman, go to Soda Stick, soda like Minnesota, sodastickco.com, or just Google Soda Stick and it'll send you there. You put in the promo code Gleeman when you check out, and they will give you 15% off whatever you
can also meet Soda Stick and see the stuff in person at the Twins Daily watch party that we're having, pregame and watch party. Before each of the postseason games, we're going to be doing something at the Poorhouse, starting about 2.5 games before game time, whatever time those game times are going to be. 2.5 hours, we're going to be doing it. And they're going to have a stand there, so you can go and check out the Soda Stick stuff in person, grab something for the game later that day. Another sponsor is BetterHelp. We both believe in BetterHelp because I think we both believe that that therapy can be daunting. The idea even to pursue therapy can be daunting. And once you have cleared that obstacle, the last thing you need to do is see a whole series of other obstacles between you and getting the therapy that you're looking for.
I would call it barriers for entry.
Yeah.
You don't need any of those. You don't need any speed bumps. And the way BetterHelp works is they can set you up with a real licensed therapist, typically within 48, 72 hours, which can often be a big difference for people. And they can tailor it to whatever you're comfortable with or whatever you prefer. If you want to do a video call, you can do a video call. If you don't want to be on camera, you can do a phone call. If you don't like talking on the phone, you can do a live chat.
Exactly.
They will tailor it to whatever you need.
Not to mention, it's a little bit less expensive than it is talking to, often than dealing with real therapy. That's yet one more obstacle that they overcome for you. And, you can let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Just visit betterhelp.com/Gleeman today, and you get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gleeman.
All right. Well, do you want to talk? I like that. I'll let you choose your own adventure here.
Okay. All right.
You ever? Were you too old to read those books when you were a kid?
No.
We had
to choose our adventures. Yeah.
That was. I didn't mean that as like an old joke. I was actually
no.
Because I
those books have been around longer than you've been around.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Yes.
I remember I had a karate one that I read like 200 times. It was like a ninja went through, and I was like, "This is amazing." I'd like to read that now. Would you like to talk rotation? Or would you like to get all the injury updates?
Let's get the injury updates since we started down that road with Royce.
It's a smart. You've chosen a smart adventure.
Good.
So here's where we're at. None of the injured trio, Lewis, Correa, Buxton, are going to Colorado. They are staying behind.
They've all taken live BP and such.
Yes,
right?
they batted against like Alcala. Who am I forgetting? Well, anyway, 3 injured pitchers basically. Because the nice thing about having 1 million injured guys is you can put together simulated games and live batting practice, which is basically a simulated game. Lewis hit a home run.
Yeah, I heard that.
I said, were there ghost runners on all 3 bases? And he goes, sure, yeah, say that. Why not? Grand slam, sure. But they're not going. And so the Twins are almost, they're having like a mini camp kind of while the team is on the road, all the injured guys, some minor leaguers, because apparently there's a rule, which seems so stupid to me, particularly given the Twins setup, that I think starting today or tomorrow, you're no longer allowed to have organized anything at your AAA facility.
Oh, really?
So that's terrible because they could basically have mini camp at St. Paul with all the prospects there. But I guess it's so teams can't just, I don't know, whatever. So they'll be at Target Field. They're also going to have some guys in Fort Myers kind of staying ready, including some prospects. For instance, Jair Camargo, who's their best catching prospect, who had a 20-homer season at AAA, but they haven't needed him because miraculously they made it through, 159 games at least, with 2 catchers. But here's the thing. If a catcher were to get injured in the playoffs, you're going to need another catcher, and you can't just send the guy who would be your third catcher, just send him home for the offseason, and he heads to back home, out of the country, and there's visa issues. And so we ran into Jair Camargo. What are you?
I've
you're
got
getting out of your wallet.
I've got a tangent to tell you.
Sean just pulled
one
his
of our
wallet
readers
out.
sent us this. It's just a
pocket knocket piece of wood. That's smart. Yeah, because
it's a business card piece of very thin wood, so that when I want to knock on wood and I can't find any wood around me, that is what that is. So that's our new secret weapon for the playoffs.
I always like a loophole for a superstition. Just 2 things that don't exist, but we've combined them to. There's a lot of religious loopholes that people do too. Like,
exactly. Sure.
We're not allowed to do something after the sun sets. However, we could put our dishwasher on a timer so that it's always like, is that, you think that was intended in the rules when they came up with these weird rules? Anyway, I don't really knock on wood. Look what it's gotten me. This great life that I have no superstitions. You knock on wood.
Oh, I do.
And you're sitting across from me and we're doing the same thing. So we got to the same place at the same time. Sure. So in terms of where they're at, I honestly think we can talk about like where their progress was as of yesterday. Right. But so much is going to come down to Monday. I think there's an extremely high chance, nearing 100%, that Correa will be in the lineup for Game 1.
Okay.
Now, what type of shape he's in? Is he
right?
No, I'm not expecting him to be any better than he's been physically this season because it's the same injury he's been dealing with. It's possible he's worse in that he did aggravate it, which caused him to go on the IL in general. He has said within the past several days he's making progress, he's feeling better, but again, you reach a ceiling with plantar fasciitis where it's like you can feel a little better, but one false step, as we've seen with him. But I would absolutely expect him to be in the Game 1 lineup and start all 3 games, assuming he doesn't tweak it again. Lewis, I think, has the second best chance of that trio to be in the Game 1 lineup. Like I said, I would expect it to be at DH if he is in the lineup. It's also possible they just get there on Monday workout day and they're like, do a little hitting, do a little running, try to take a ground ball or 2, and it doesn't work. Right. I mean, it's not. It either does or doesn't. There's no you can tape it up and you can, do whatever, but a hamstring injury is not a real forgiving thing when you're that short of a typical timeline. Yep. And then with Buxton, it's a real wild card, I think, at this point. I saw he talked to Lavelle yesterday.
Yeah, what did he say?
I mean, he wants to play. He thinks he can play, but that's meaningless.
He's not even on the roster right now. Like, it's one of those things where you would think if they thought he could play, he would be
none of
making
the 3
some
are on the
appearances
roster.
in the games. No, I know, but Buxton is in the 10-day IL. He's long beyond the 10-day IL is my point. I would think that they would want to give him some reps in real games if they were going to put him on the roster.
Yes, but he's not getting reps. I get what you're saying about the timeline.
I mean, he's
not getting reps in Colorado for the same reason Correa and Lewis are not getting reps in Colorado, because they're trying to, in a tight window, get him ready for Tuesday. Yeah. Now, it just so happens that he's been trying to get ready for 2 months instead of 2 weeks, but it's the same.
And he was playing in games up until Sunday. right?
Yeah,
He hit the AAA.
I mean,
Right? Yeah,
yeah, he played one game.
right.
He only played one. Saturday was rained out,
Oh, okay, all right.
so he played Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he went 0 for 4, I think, something like that,
Yeah.
as the DH. I'm skeptical. Now, I say that a lot with Buxton, but it's usually correct. So, he's played, I don't know, he's had 10 competitive at-bats in the last 2 months. They haven't looked particularly great. It's not like, there have been years past, he goes on a rehab and he's launching homers, and you at least go, okay, at the plate he's locked in.
Well, and if you've got Royce Lewis coming back as a DH,
well, yeah, I think no matter what, you're not going to see Buxton starting at DH against a right-handed pitcher, at least in the playoffs. What has he done to deserve that? I don't know, just in terms of warranting it with the performance, let alone with the injuries and stuff. Is it possible that they just say, screw it, we'll put him on the roster? You're kind of looking for like a Kirk Gibson moment where it's just like, I don't know, you put him on the roster, you hope that there's some left-handed reliever in the 6th inning or the 8th inning who comes in and you pinch hit Buxton for a lefty or Vasquez or something like that, and you just go, is there a 3% chance he turns on a fastball and hits it 450 feet? Yeah. Guess what? If he does that, it's amazing. If he doesn't do that, is it that
folly?
Is it that big of a difference than Jordan Luplow's odds of doing that, or whatever? Right. But I think the idea that he's going to play outfield or he's going to start a game in center, that's beyond. That was never likely, and now he hasn't even been able to do that on rehabs. But he's clearly wants to play. He's doing. It's difficult because, and we've talked about this, like the narrative surrounding his injuries, it's a lost cause. People hate him because of these injuries. And we've tried to kind of say, like, don't treat injuries as moral failings or choices. Like, some guys are just hurt. Yep. But there comes a point, and we saw it with Mauer, we've seen it with a lot of off-injured star players, particularly once they get a big contract and people start to feel resentment and people start to, all sorts of these weird emotions seep in. And now it's like, you see, you post a tweet about how Buxton's working to make his way back and hoping to play, and all the replies are just the most toxic thing you've ever seen. And it's like, what was his big? What did he do? Like, what has he done to anger people? Got injured, and attempted to play injured and attempted to come back. Well, isn't that precisely what people want? He's willing to run through a wall. He's willing to limp his way through it. He's willing to play at 80%. Now, the problem becomes, the team has to make a decision based on that same information, and their motives are different than Byron Buxton's. Because from Byron Buxton's standpoint, he wants to play, and he's willing to do whatever he can do to push himself physically to play. And that's great. That's the attitude you want a player to have. But that's the attitude he's had before, and it hasn't always worked out, short-term or long-term. From the Twins' standpoint, it's like, well, it's great that he's willing to push himself to play. It's great that he'd play at 1%, 10%, 50%. But they have to say to themselves,
we need the roster spot.
Right. Yeah. Is that actually helping
when
us?
Is he going to play, first of all?
What would the role be?
If he does play, is he going to help? Right.
Exactly. And so I think that's where he's at. I would not be shocked if he's on the playoff roster. What are we really talking about here? We'll debate the 25th, 26th spots on a roster. Yeah. And I do think having a pinch runner like Stevenson or an extra bullpen arm, those things are valuable. But, it is the 26th spot on a 26-man roster for a 3-game series. So it's not like, it ain't prime real estate here. Yeah. And so if you just want to say to yourself, screw it. Maybe he launches one. Maybe he doesn't even get used. Maybe that spot never even comes up. Maybe he pinch runs once. Maybe, whatever. I think a key scenario could be, are they confident that if he comes off the bench as a pinch hitter, let's say as a righty against a lefty reliever, pinch hitting for, I don't even know. Are they confident that he could just go stand in left field for 2 innings? Because then he could potentially take the role of Luplow.
Sure.
Now, I would argue you could use both, especially if you're going to face Valdez. But honestly, if you're facing Seattle or Toronto, especially Seattle, you're not facing lefties really that matter anyway. And so the idea of Luplow or Buxton or these right-handed bench bats, which is weakness for the Twins potentially, is much less impactful in that spot.
Yep.
So that's where I think the injuries are. I would expect Correa to play. I would not be surprised if Lewis plays, but at DH, and I would be mildly surprised if Buxton plays. I would be very surprised if Buxton, is starting against right-handed pitchers, especially, or starting in the outfield.
I can't imagine that being the case, but I can see him coming off the bench. And like you raise a good point, whether or not he can, be productive in the outfield or be productive after playing the field is one question. But I don't think there's a question that, if you needed him to run around left field for the 8th and 9th inning because he pinch hit in the bottom of the 7th, that he'd be able to do that.
You would hope.
Right.
Now,
and that it would not necnecessarily affect him too much for the next opportunity he has.
Does,
and if it's game 3,
you replace him on the roster and then he's out for the next round.
Right.
Because that's the rules. You can replace an injured player between games. They're then unavailable or ineligible for the remainder of that series and the entire following series. But if Buxton or Lewis, for that matter, if Lewis tries to give it a go, plays 3 innings and gets removed, well, he's unlikely to be ready to go 4 days later for the start of the second round series. So the ineligibility there. So yeah, I think that's where they're at with Buxton. I mean, I don't know. I think people are going to have strong opinions either way. I think it's a relatively low wattage like I said, real estate on the roster. If they think there's a chance he could make an impact, sure. My question with the outfield thing is, when Jordan Luplow pinch hits, you just go throw him out in left field.
Right.
Why, like you said, can Buxton do that physically?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure he can, but what's the domino effect of that? And then here's my real question: are they going to make a mockery of the outfield and put him in center field then? And move like Michael Taylor to left field, which is going to be absurd.
That would be ridiculous.
So we'll see about that. I'm not saying that's what they plan to do, but that would be, I think, it would be a bad look. I think. But
This whole discussion does sort of raise another point about your point about scouting. The various 3 teams.
Yeah.
The other teams. Roles change even if you're scouting teams, and this also leads into the rotation and bullpen talk we're going to have. Roles change so much in the postseason. Like, you will find players doing things and in places that you did not expect them to be, or places they have not been for 162 games.
Yeah, right. Or for Kent Maeda, yesterday was his first relief appearance in 4 years.
Exactly, right.
And you see, you get to game 3.
Dallas Keuchel pitching 8th, 9th innings, right.
But I mean, we've seen teams go on playoff runs where all of a sudden Max Scherzer's coming out of the bullpen on 2 days rest, and you push, because the considerations, these sort of the domino effects, or the what happens the day after is of less importance than what happens that day, and there's just sort of a all hands on deck situation, which the Twins are in. So
that the fact is that the roles that you have become accustomed to. Right. One of the challenges of the playoffs is that they don't have to be in those roles anymore. That if the manager wants, or if the organization wants, they want to start screwing around with some things, they can do it. They don't have to. They don't have to, for game 3. They don't have to go to a starter that's going to go 6 innings. They can go to 2 guys that are each going to go 3 innings. They can do. They can do a bunch of things like that. A bunch of goofy stuff can happen in the playoffs,
and that's what makes it tough to handicap. Like to say, who do they want to play? Who's the favorite?
Right.
Because it's just all what you know over 6 months is not what you know over 3 games, basically, or what you think you know over them. So yeah,
as we get to the rotation, we talk about the bullpen and such. I think that's worth mentioning, because the Twins are already putting guys into a bunch of different roles that we have not seen before.
Yeah.
And as much as we have seen Baldelli use the deep bench and screw around with the lineup through the first 162 games, it's going to be real interesting to see what he's doing with this pitching staff and rotation and bullpen through the postseason. At this point,
I asked.
He's got more tools and toys to play with now than he has ever had in his 5 years of managing here. We're going to get to see what his tendencies are on that. Something like that.
That can be good. It can also be bad, because you still have to make the right decisions.
Right.
And yes, they have more high octane arms. I would say kind of playoff caliber raw stuff in the bullpen than they've had at any point, not only this season, but for 5 years or 10 years. Or I don't even know. Because you're adding Louis Varland, who now looks phenomenal as a reliever. You're adding Chris Paddock, who threw 99, his fastest pitch ever. You're adding Kenta Maeda into the bullpen. You're adding Brock Stewart, who we can mention here in a second, back to the bullpen.
Before we jump into that, you want to get the last?
Well, let me just finish on this. So, and then we'll talk rotation after this. But it's great to have all that. It's great to be able to reach into your grab bag and not just have 3 things you can pull out, but have 8 things you can pull out that you theoretically feel comfortable with. But none of that's going to matter if you bring in Chris Paddock for the 6th inning of a tie game and he walks a guy and gives up a 2-run homer, because there's so many moving parts here, or so many like unproven, not only from an injury standpoint. For instance, Chris Paddock, if he's on the playoff roster, I think he will be, but it's not certain, obviously. He will have either made 1 or 2 appearances in the last 2 years.
Right. Right.
And he's never been a reliever,
right,
except until this week, basically.
Right.
Brock Stewart will either have made 1 or 2 appearances since June.
Yeah.
Louis Varland is a rookie who's been a reliever for about, I don't know, 15 days. Yeah. And there's guys beyond, Kenta Maeda, for that matter. We're looking and saying, 5 years ago he was great in the bullpen for the Dodgers. Well, yeah, he was a different pitcher 5 years ago. He's got much more question marks. And so, theoretically, all these guys have huge upside. There isn't a guy they're going to have in their bullpen who isn't, I think, depending if they take 8 or 9, but who isn't the caliber of stuff or upside or ceiling that could pitch the 7th inning of a close playoff game. But half those guys, like 4 out of the 8, let's say, you have no idea what you're getting for them, realistically. Like even Brock Stewart, like who you don't know. You're hoping. Chris Paddock, Louis Varland, Kenta Maeda, and on and on. And that's even not even including guys like Pagan, who are fully healthy and in their normal role.
Right.
I don't know what they're going to get from Emilio Pagan. Part of me thinks I do know what they're going to get, and that's the scary part. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's where, and Baldelli, I've asked him about this, and he's talked about this. It's a rare spot to be in where the Twins in past years and many teams get to this point in the season where the playoffs are ahead and they're just trying to patch together anything in the bullpen.
Right. Yes.
They've lost 2 setup guys to arm injuries. Guys are worn down.
Yes.
Well, the Twins
look at the Rangers right now.
Yeah,
they're just
look at the Twins
fumes,
3 weeks ago.
Right.
By the way, they were in that spot, but they got all these reinforcements. And so Baldelli's point was, and I agree, which is it's a rare position to be in where you have more and better bullpen options now than you did at any point this season. Yeah. But also,
it doesn't really matter.
Yes. You have no clue really what you're getting. You're hopeful that what you're getting, and that's why they're going to try to pitch him.
I mean, that is the beauty and the drama of the postseason. It's also the tragedy of the postseason is you can end up with a incredibly high leverage spot.
Right.
And, not just from the pitching side, but on the hitting side. And the guy coming up to the plate is the 220 hitter that you don't want in that high leverage spot, and then he can hit a home run. And it is
Mark Lemke, and there's all kinds of playoff heroes who had no business being playoff heroes. And by the way, the flip side is true. There's all kinds of Hall of Fame players who did nothing in the playoffs.
That is right. Yeah, this is right.
The small samples it eliminates everything. It smooths out everything.
That's right.
And
that's one of the things about those 3 guys. The 3 guys that are on the IL that we just talked about coming back. Maybe this. If you were going to ask me which 3 guys on the roster do I feel like I am least worried about them being not big enough for the moment, like they feel like they're big enough for the moment.
Sure.
Right. They would be Correa based on his Houston success, Buxton just based on how many times he's ended up hitting game-winning home runs, or sometimes not game-winning home runs. Sometimes they end up, losing at the bottom of the ninth, right? But over and over and over again, he's shown that.
Big
and then Royce Lewis, who's been that too. And those are the 3 guys that we're wondering whether or not they're going to come back. And I mean, that sounds like that is a sports talk cliche about being but. I mean, it is what it is. Like, the postseason is about moments and about coming through on moments, regardless of what your OPS was during the regular season.
Go back and look at the list of, like, ALCS, NLCS, and World Series MVPs. It's not Hall of Famers. Yeah. I mean, there's some Hall of Famers.
Yeah, sure.
But it's different. You go back and look at, like, NBA Finals MVP.
Yeah.
And it's just a million Michael Jordans and LeBron James. I mean, there's never been, David Eckstein
Eddie
version.
Rosario is absolutely a
NLCS. And I'll make another comp to NBA, which I love the NBA. I'm a big basketball fan. Excited. Coming up less than a month. A lot of times in basketball, the cliche that people use is it's a make or miss league.
Right.
And especially in the playoffs, which is you're going to run your offense and your strengths are going to hopefully beat the other team's weaknesses. But ultimately, a lot of things are going to come down to you got one of your best shooters standing in a corner, and he gets a pass from a double-teamed player, and he gets a wide-open shot that he's made 40% of the time over the last 6 months, and he's either going to make it or he's going to miss it.
Yes.
And if he makes it, you're going to be hoisting a trophy, and the narratives are going to be how brilliant the team was and how clutch this guy was, and their plan worked perfect, or he's going to miss it 50% or 60% of the time, in which case the coach should be fired and they need to make changes and the strategy didn't work. And that's in baseball, especially.
Makes 3 out of 10. It's
a make or miss league.
Goat. Yeah,
and it's with Correa or with Buxton, like we talked about. You could have him on the roster, and he's going to find himself in a big spot, and he's either going to make it or he's going to miss it. Yeah. And if he makes it, amazing. Yeah. And if he misses it, well, Jordan Luplow might have missed it too. Who knows? Before we get a little more to the rotation, let's just finish up with our last couple of sponsors.
I have been playing with the Odds Are application that we talked about a few weeks ago, which is uses AI machine learning to sort of identify the best bets that you can make out there. If you're somebody who likes to follow, what is going on with sports and who is favored and who might not be favored and so on, I gotta say it's pretty interesting. One of the things I like about it is that it's got 2 tabs. One is sort of the top ranked ones, like for instance on tonight's top ranked ones.
They're recommended plays, basically.
These are the recommended plays. Like in particular, it likes BYU versus the spread tonight, right? And then it also has just sort of all, like every game that's going on. These are games that they're not necessarily, they'll tell you what they think, but the AI isn't grading that one as, this is absolutely.
But they're offering the same info if you want to delve deeper into and figure out what you think about it, basically.
That's right. And, basically, I'd like that they're leaning on a method that isn't just luck.
Yes, it's called Odds Are, the word odds and then just a capital R. Odds Are.
All one word.
And we have a special link for you to use to get straight to the download just for Gleeman and the Geek listeners. If you download the app at oddsr.com/Gleeman, you get 30 days free on the app to give it a try. That's odds, ODDSR, oddsr.com/Gleeman, and you get 30 days free on the app.
And by the way, it's not someplace you make bets. It's just something that can help you out with your bets. That's right.
And analysis.
Yep, that's right.
And then last but not least, the Game Time app, which can very much come in handy for hard to find or last minute tickets. That's their special.
And that is what the Twins postseason games are.
Postseason games will be last minute when you don't even know the game time until a day before. It is really last minute.
That's exactly right.
It's an app.
Yes.
John has used it many times, literally walking to Target Field to purchase tickets. And then by the time you get to the gate, you just show your phone. That's right. You walk right in. It works perfectly. And so it's called Game Time. It's an app on your phone. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time and just download the Game Time app, create an account, and then use the code Gleeman, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but just create an account on the Game Time app, redeem the code Gleeman, Gleeman. You get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's talk rotation here. So I wrote this up in a very silly way a couple days ago to kind of play up the secretive aspect that the Twins always lean into, which is Sunday morning. Baldelli kind of uncharacteristically let it slip. He was just like, you know what, I'm going to be honest. Pablo and Sonny are starting the first 2 games for us.
Right.
And we were all like, oh, wow, that's, everyone, that's the worst kept secret ever, but he just doesn't usually say that stuff.
Right.
And so then we were like, okay, and we tweeted it out and go upstairs. You watch the game, you come back down post game because I had spent the entire game debating with Doe, Young Park from MLB.com.
I love this.
My seatmate. Did he mean specifically that Lopez would start game 1 and Sonny Gray would start game 2 in that order? Or did he just mean those 2 guys are starting the first 2 games in some order?
Right.
So then we get down there post game and we waited till the cameras went off and he did his interview and everything. And we said, hey, just by the way, just to clarify, like from a reporting standpoint, you did mean specifically that Lopez would start game 1 and Sonny Gray would start game 2, at which point he said, oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. whatever mood he was in to be revealing in the morning was not the same at night.
That's right.
But he did finally say that yesterday. Okay. Lopez is starting game 1. Sonny Gray is starting game 2. No one will say who's starting game 3, but it lines up to be Joe Ryan, who is actually starting tonight at Coors. I think it'll probably be an abbreviated start, much like Sonny Gray and Pablo Lopez only went short 3 or 4
innings or something, 80 pitches.
Not even. Sonny Gray threw like 40 pitches or something like that.
Pablo
Maeda threw more pitches in relief of Sonny Gray than Sonny Gray threw in his start, which we're going to get to that in a second too. But I'm almost certain it'll be Joe Ryan in game 3. However, I'm less certain than I was yesterday at this time because the way they used Maeda in his first technically relief appearance in 4 years, 4 years to the day since his last relief appearance in 2019 for the Dodgers. Right. He threw 4 innings, basically,
right. Yep.
and, I don't know, 65 pitches. It was effectively a start.
Right.
A shorter start, but a start. It just so happened that it began in the 4th inning or the whatever inning after Gray left. When they talked about Maeda shifting to the bullpen and skipping his final 2 turns in the rotation to transition to relief for the playoffs, well, that's something he often did with the Dodgers. That's something that has always loomed as a possibility for the Twins, particularly once they had good depth in the rotation down the stretch with Ryan and Ober, etc. My assumption was the role he'd be transitioning to bullpen-wise would probably be similar to Varlin and Paddock, which is kind of bridge 2-inning, give or take. The starter leaves after 5. How do we get it to, Theobald, Jax, Duran, or Stewart in the 7th, 8th, 9th? Right. Well, we need someone to come in for the 5th, 6th, or the 6th, 7th. A guy to go through the lineup once, basically. Yeah. And that's what they've been kind of grooming Varlin and Paddock for. I assumed Maeda would take something similar, maybe a little higher leverage potentially than those two just because of his experience. But that was not the usage that he had yesterday. Right. The usage that he had yesterday was you're starting a game, you're just beginning it in the middle of the game, basically, almost like an opener situation. And we tried to get some answers afterward and talk to him about it. And he basically just said, I'm going to stay ready for any role. Right. I haven't been told anything. If they need me to start, I start. If they need me. And so that made me less. I went from like 99.9% certain Joe Ryan starts game 3 to like 95% certain.
When I wonder what starting even means anymore.
Well, right. That's
the other thing. Like what I saw yesterday, I thought the same thing. And I actually, when they moved my into the bullpen, I wondered whether or not they would go like that. We just talked about how roles and stuff don't necessarily exist, right? I can see them going into a game 3 with them being like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go 4-3-2. We're going to put Joe Ryan out there with his high fastball for 4 innings. He's going to get through the lineup maybe twice, maybe not, but we're not letting him see somebody a third time, right? And then we're going to put Maeda out there for 3, and then we're going to put Varland out there for 2, or close it down with Jax or whatever.
Your normal setup,
Duran, something like that, right? And that's kind of what they did yesterday.
Yeah, although that's what I've kind of been assuming. Because, I think they could even do that with Gray and Lopez, too, to some extent. Right. Because they basically have 3 guys who could do that as relief, Varlin, Paddock, and Maeda. But yesterday made me think even slightly different than that, which is like he might just start game 3. Or
Maeda, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
or at the very least, in which case, is Ryan then even on the roster? Now, again, I still think Joe Ryan's going to start game 3, but I'm just sort of hypothesizing here. Or is this more of a keep him stretched out so that he could start game 1 of a second round series, which would be next Saturday?
Yes, that's right.
Because again, if Pablo Lopez can't start both openers on full rest, so you don't need a 4th starter in the first round, and then all of a sudden the 4th starter is the game 1 starter in the second round, which would then line them up to potentially start twice in a 5-game series. So that could be Ober, which has kind of been my assumption here, or it could just be Kenta Maeda for 4 innings because he's remained mostly stretched out. It could be also they could just be maintaining maximum flexibility, which we know the Twins love to do, especially with pitching. And maybe they play it by ear for game 1 and game 2. And if Kenta Maeda is needed for 2 innings in one of those games, then he's not starting anything or even being a bridge in game 3. Yep. But if he's not needed to pitch in the first 2 games,
maybe they throw his bendy stuff for 4 innings and then they follow it up with a Varland or Joe Ryan for that matter.
I still think it'll be Joe Ryan, but I'm slightly less certain than I was. And really, the bigger takeaway is just the whatever role Maeda is might be reliever or bullpen, but it might not really be what you're kind of imagining as reliever bullpen. It might be like quasi-starter who comes in the middle of the game. It could be a bridge, or it could just be, 7th inning tie game, righties due up. All right, it's going to be Maeda here. Like they could really use him in almost any. He is a wild card in the sense that like he's done all the roles. He's done well in all the roles. He seems very open to doing whatever they need, which for a 35-year-old impending free agent, I give him credit for because he's very team driven and just saying basically. I'll do it. Whatever you need me to do, I'm keeping my options open. I'm staying stretched out, all that stuff. So, yeah.
And for that matter, if they want to prepare him for a game 3, right, and they say, you prepare just like you're going to be a starter. I mean, they might have very well done that with yesterday. Like, listen, we're going to go Sonny Gray 4 innings. We're going to go with you 3-4 innings like this
because he said
you prepare it just like it is. You get your 5 days of rest. You have your bullpen day a couple days early, and you do everything as if you're starting. We're just having you start in the 4th inning or the 5th inning.
That's basically what he prepped to do. The only thing I will say about that is, and I know people are going, what's the difference? Like, why does it matter if you label him a reliever or a starter if he's going to go? But here's the only way it really matters is if you were going to say to Maeda or any reliever, Louis Varland, we've seen it with Louis Varland, there's a difference in terms of how they would approach from pitch mix, but also like effort level.
Right.
Because if you tell Louis Varland you're a reliever and you're an actual reliever, well, we've seen what happens. He goes from throwing 95 to throwing 99 because he knows I'm only going through the lineup once. I might only pitch, 20 pitches, 30 pitches.
I might go 2 innings, 3 innings.
I don't need to pace myself. I don't need to, throw 90% so that have more gas left in the tank. And with Maeda, I'm not saying he's going to have some massive velocity jump, but there is a difference in terms of approach and mindset and just effort, like max effort. If you tell him you're a true reliever, like you're going to throw 25 pitches, or, hey, be ready to throw 4 innings. Because if you tell him to be ready for 25 pitches, his pitch mix is going to be different. He is probably going to add a mile or two in velocity versus we saw yesterday. He basically just made a start and pitched like he normally does in a start, which is he was trying to pace himself. He knew he was going to go through the lineup more than one time. So that's really like strategically, but also just in terms
in terms of preparation. Like if you're preparing to listen, you're going to throw 4 innings on game 3. If there's a game 3, you're throwing 4 innings for it. Well, then you're really not available for game 1 and game 2.
That too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that. Yeah, that's a little bit different. And if you are available for game 1 and game 2 and you're not used, you're probably not going to have done the routine to go 4 innings in game 3. You know what I mean?
Unless they've told you in advance that's the whole plan.
Right, that's right. Exactly.
Let's see. A few other things. So yeah, all I mean there is just like when we think about, Maeda's going to be in the bullpen for the playoffs, there's a big difference in terms of the stuff and the pitch mix versus, is he actually a reliever or is he just kind of a reliever in name only?
Right.
And that's
is he
uncertain.
Somebody that is on call all the time, or is he somebody that they're going to screw on with and have a plan that is different than the sort of things we see or that you can afford to do a 162 game season?
It's like if you're a runner, there's a big difference between running 500 meters and a marathon. Like you're the same runner.
Yes.
But you just are going to approach it completely differently. And your first step right out of the box is going to be different because you're going to either pace yourself or not be pacing yourself. In terms of the first 2 guys, which is going to be Lopez Tuesday, Sonny Gray Wednesday, they both had, as planned, abbreviated starts. And yet, even with the abbreviated start, Pablo Lopez threw 194 innings this season, which is a career high. Second year in a row, he's set a career high. Second year in a row, he's take out that card with the wood on it.
I don't need it. I've got the wooden tape over here. So
he has talked since spring training about he had shoulder problems quite a bit with the Marlins early in his career. And last season, he made 30-plus starts and pitched 185 innings or something like that for the first time in his career, which is part of why the Twins valued him so highly. But he talked from the moment they got him, the first Zoom we did with him last offseason, he was like, the most important thing for me now, I've figured out how to pitch. I think I'm a good major league pitcher. I need to figure out how do I make 30 starts? How do I throw 190 innings? Yes. How do I feel as strong in September or now October as I do in April? And that was a struggle for him, but he figured it out. He thought he figured out some things last year with the Marlins and then took it even further. So even with the abbreviated start, he's a shade under 200 innings, which is a lot in 2023. That's a career high. And then Sonny Gray, who despite this weird reputation he's earned from Twins fans who are upset about quick hooks from Baldelli, he's been one of the least durable, good starting pitchers of the last decade. Like, you go look at Sonny Gray's innings total. Right. And the notion of why don't the Twins just leave him in until he's tired? Well, yeah. I mean, he's more often throwing 110 innings in a season than 175, let alone 200. Right. And so he finished with 184 innings, which is his most since 2015 when he was a young kind of phenom with the A's. It's been 8 years since he got past 175 innings. And the team to get him past 175 innings is the one that is constantly being criticized for removing him from games early. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And just from a performance standpoint, in addition to the durability and workload and everything, both of them, Sonny Gray also talked about how because he was kind of behind when camp started after the lockout last year, in part because he was part of the Players Association and all that, all the negotiations and everything. He had some nagging hamstring all season. He felt like he was kind of behind from the start and never really got right. And you look and he ended up throwing out 120 innings or something like that. He was good, but he actually said something that I thought was interesting after last start, not this most recent one, where he was like, I'm not trying to like sound conceited, but I can post a ERA in the mid threes in 120 innings in my sleep. Like, I know I can do that.
Right.
That's not the question. The question is not how good can I be. I'm good. Like, and sure enough, if you look consistently, 3.5 ERA, 3.7 ERA. I mean, just every year. Now, this year, he's 2 point something. That's key too.
Right.
But his thing was I spent the entire offseason working out differently to try to, much like Lopez, be as strong in September as I am in April and make it through 185 innings. And 184 innings for Sonny Gray, that's a lot of innings.
Yes, it is.
He's a little dude. He's 33. He has a history of injuries and shorter starts and 120 innings, 110 innings in a season. This was a big accomplishment for him. But then beyond that, I mean, he's got a 2.79 ERA,
That's crazy.
which I think is going to end up being second to Garrett Cole in the American League.
Yep.
He's definitely going to get some Cy Young votes, down ballot Cy Young votes. It's the lowest ERA by a qualified Twins starter since Johan. And then I'll continue that theme by saying that Pablo Lopez struck out 234 batters,
Yes.
which is 60 more than his previous career best, which is incredible. And that is the most by a Twins pitcher since
Johan. Yep.
All the lists are since Johan. Though I wanted to read this. So Pablo Lopez starting game one, career high in innings, 60 more strikeouts than he's ever struck out before, and he's always been a decent strikeout pitcher. And he talked about this when the Twins got him. He talked about this even more a month later when they signed him to a contract extension. But I thought it was worth reading. So he was basically asked after his last start, how the hell do you go at, in your fifth, sixth season or whatever with a new team, shattering your, 234 strikeouts after having 170 was your previous or whatever record. And he basically said, I'll read you the whole quote here. It's a good quote. He's smart. He's a good, he's a good talker,
yes, he
as
is.
we like to say.
Yes.
He said, up until last year with the Marlins, I figured the moment I developed some kind of consistent breaking ball, that was going to open up doors for more options because I was always playing the north-south game with a fastball and a changeup. He's had a great changeup and a mid-90s fastball. So here's a little more from him. He said, I didn't really have anything to expose that low and away to a righty, down and into a lefty. I tinkered with a cutter that was not very successful early in my career. He's talking about with the Marlins. So then here's where it gets kind of interesting to me. He said, I'm extremely grateful for all the resources the Twins made available when it came to pitch development and understanding the benefits behind why a pitch moving in a certain direction would give us the options we were looking for. He said, I like statistics. I like facts. The moment they brought me all kinds of numbers and information, I was already sold on the idea of adding a sweeper. A breaking ball, a kind of east-west slider curveball
dives down and away to righties and in down and lefties. Yeah.
So, and then just to finish this quote, he said, and then it was just about practice, developing, and working on that consistency. The Twins were not only good at giving me the idea in the first place, but also making sure we were taking the right steps in the right direction. He went on more about that, and I've talked to some Twins coaches about it too, which is, I mean, we talked about this the day they acquired him, which is he's already a really good pitcher. He's got a great changeup. He's got a mid-90s fastball, but he's had some injury problems, which at least for this year he's gotten past, and he's had an inconsistent third pitch. He's tinkered with bigger curveballs. He's tinkered with tighter sliders. Like he said, he's tinkered with a cutter, and it hasn't worked. And he scrapped it. He's become a two-pitch guy. And the Twins, from the moment they acquired him, and he basically said, I showed up to spring training day one, and Pete Mackey, the pitching coach, and some of the analytics guys literally took him in a room and set up like an iPad and said, here's what we want you to do. Here's why it's important. Here's why it will be effective. And here's even more than that, like he said, the options it can create or the doors it can open. And I know
and we started talking to him in spring training about he was working on 2 different types of curveballs, basically, right? He was trying to find something. He wasn't putting all his eggs in one basket either. Right. He was working a couple of different things.
Just trial and error.
That's right.
Like what works, what feels comfortable, what gets swings and misses, what's getting hit, what's getting reactions from hitters, and they settled on the sweeper. And you look now, and he went from throwing a breaking ball 15% of the time ineffectively to throwing it 30% of the time or more very effectively, getting tons of swings and misses. Righties and lefties aren't knocking it around.
To the point that a guy who has always been known as one of the best changeups in the Major League Baseball was cutting back on his changeups. Because from a mix standpoint, it worked better, even though it is known as one of the best pitches in major leagues.
And so I know people are obsessed with the lack of like young ace level pitchers or frontline starters that the Twins have developed, because there was all this talk about the pitching pipeline and all that. But Pablo Lopez is 27, and for the Twins to go out, they paid a premium to get him, absolutely. But then they signed him to an extension, and now he's starting game 1 of the playoffs after setting a career high and everything. They looked at a guy who was really good with a fastball and a changeup, and they said, here's kind of what we can do for you.
Right.
We can get you throwing harder, which they added like 1.5 miles per fastball.
Yeah.
We can help you stay on the path of staying healthy, which he set a career high in innings, and he's feeling strong heading into the playoffs. And we can literally help you invent a pitch that you've never thrown before. And not only will it be effective, it will be arguably now your best pitch. Right. It will completely change the sort of arsenal that you can throw at hitters. It will completely change what they have to think about, what they have to react to. And that's how you strike out 60 more batters than ever before. Yeah. That's why you're starting game 1. And I think when the focus is on, well, hey, didn't they hire Falvey from Cleveland to build this pitching pipeline? Yeah, well, they haven't developed as many young frontline starters. But you look at what they've done with Joe Ryan, who was not an elite prospect when they acquired him, and is now throwing a splitter that he never threw before and a sweeper that he never threw before, and was at an all-star level for much of this season. Right. You look at, by the way, what they did with Sonny Gray, who's an old-ass veteran, multi-time all-star, having one of arguably his best season in 8 years, really. And then you look at what they did with Pablo Lopez. You look at what they've done with Louis Varland, who went from Bailey Ober, same thing. So, yes, it's not... Everyone wants, the rotation stacked with 23-year-old future all-stars. Yeah, well, they haven't gotten to that. Yeah. But their ability to take like 25, 26, 27-year-olds and get them to a level, or even a 33-year-old like Sonny Gray, and get them to a level that they've rarely, if ever, been at, that's remarkable in itself. And I think it's good for a smart guy like Pablo Lopez to have a quote where he's like, I like statistics. I like information. Because the shit you always hear, the stuff you always hear when people are frustrated is, well, these guys have no feel and they're just giving numbers and blah, blah, blah. Well, for some pitchers like Pablo Lopez, who is smart as hell, he wants that stuff. Right. He got excited when they pulled him aside on day 1 in Fort Myers and said, come into this room. We're going to show you everything we got planned. Right. Now, some pitchers might not like that, but for him, it's worked. And so that's why I'm more excited even with him signed long-term than I was when they did it. And I thought it was a good move when they did it. And I'm just very curious and hopeful in terms of game 1, because Sonny Gray could have easily started game 1. And I think you can make the argument that Sonny Gray was a better pitcher this year.
Right.
Now, ERA-wise, that's an easy argument to make. You look at some of the secondary numbers and all that, it's a little bit closer. Sure. But, here's the thing. They're each going to start once in the first round series. Right. It's a pretty good place to be in.
It'd be interesting I'll give one more thing about that, is that, we have said over and over and over again how stubborn this organization can be about something they sort of believe in, right? Whether they will double down and double down and double down, right?
Right.
The pitching pipeline is an example of them. Listen, I know that's still a priority. It's something that hasn't, it has worked a little bit, like Varland and Ober and such. But they've also pivoted to the point where, like, listen, we've got some position players. We can trade some of these guys for some starters. And that's what we've seen them do over and over and over again. I mean, they have brought in a lot of pitchers that way. They brought in Kenta Maeda that way. Right. Not with the hitter, but with a different pitcher.
Right.
They brought in Malley did not work out.
Right.
But Sonny Gray
Joe
did
Ryan
work
was
out.
a trade.
Joe Ryan
was a trade.
Right. Pablo Lopez is a trade.
Yeah.
Like, they have shown the flexibility on that particular piece. They have not been they have, and maybe that was just by necessity. Like if you're not actually developing those, you
the
don't
problem
really have a
with
choice. Right?
putting all your eggs in the developing young pitching category is, one, it's really difficult.
Right. Yeah.
And two, even if you are somewhat successful, injuries can just wipe all that away
That's
anyway.
right. Yeah.
Like, who knows what Matt Cantorino would have turned into?
Right.
It doesn't matter. He's been hurt for 3 years.
Right.
Who knows
That's right.
what, fill in the blank starter would have turned into. And yet, here we are. This is the strongest rotation they've ever had. They're not. It's not a homegrown rotation, but who cares?
Right, yeah.
And it's so strong that they're able to shift multiple starters
Right, yeah.
to the bullpen,
Right.
including Varlin,
Right.
who is a young starter.
Right.
And so it's a place the Twins in my lifetime have never been in, really,
Right, yeah.
basically.
Yeah, you're
but again, all this now they got to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All this stuff about Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan, if they go out there and get knocked around in the playoffs,
They can't have a crummy game.
right?
Yeah.
It
That's
doesn't
right.
matter.
Yep.
It's a make or miss league. Let's see, and then just to finish up, we talked a little bit about the bullpen. Obviously, Paddock finally actually got into a
Yes, I
game.
saw.
It didn't rain on him. The first inning was extraordinarily promising. He gave up a
Yes.
leadoff single on the first pitch he'd thrown in 16 months, and then struck out the next three batters.
Yeah.
He hit 99, which is the fastest pitch he's ever thrown in his entire life. In a recorded environment.
He might have been a little juiced up.
He was juiced up. And then he came out for a second inning, which was planned.
Right.
That was the whole point, and got knocked around a little bit.
Yes.
But that's why you're trying to put him in these spots in games
right.
that don't
Yeah.
really matter. Brock Stewart returned, has pitched once now for the Twins, looked like his usual self. We've talked to him a couple times over the last week or so. He's in good spirits. He's saying he's letting it rip. There's no kind of mental holdback of what happens if this. I think a month ago he wasn't in as good a spot. He had some soreness still, but they played a longer game with him. And fortunately, from a timeline standpoint, it worked out kind of ideally with a lot of these guys.
I
returning.
love his new entrance music.
Yeah.
I want a rock
We
by
Want a Brock.
I want a Brock by Twisted Sister. It's
good.
It is fantastic.
I was like, well, I guess the stadium ops did have a couple of months to play around with the Brock Stewart situation. But yeah, he's another smart dude who, I think the question with him is just going to be, the stuff is there right now.
Right.
The question with him is, can he throw strikes consistently, which he's mentioned. Like that's his focus now because he's never been as a reliever, that's never been a strength because he's throwing such high octane, but it can really be an issue coming back from, months off basically. And then the question is like between, when he got hurt, I think third week of June or something like that, he was basically their top setup man.
Right, yes.
He may be neck and neck kind of with Jax at that point.
But
So then he's out of the picture. Now, Jax has had some good moments, but he also has had some tricky moments.
Right.
Do they just say, Stewart's our eighth inning guy now? Like, do they have that level of faith in him? Or is it just he's part of the mix with Theobar and Pagan and Jax and mix and match? Because, push is going to come to shove here, right? Somebody's going to pitch the eighth inning. You can't just go, well, it's this group is going to handle it.
Yep.
Well, somebody's going to walk out onto that mound to pitch to start the eighth inning. And I'm very curious
who they choose.
if the Twins have a lead or whatever, obviously. If it's Stewart, if it's Theobar, if it's Jax, it's been Jax
Pagan.
for most of the season. I had a nice chat with Emilio Pagan yesterday. I made him laugh even.
Good.
Not even at my expense. It was actually at Phil Miller's expense.
Good.
Which is bringing people together. Phil Miller. And then, so to make room for Stewart, they DFA'd Dylan Floro.
Yes.
Now, obviously, when they traded Jorge Lopez for Dylan Floro, it was kind of a, our damaged reliever for your damaged reliever.
Yeah.
They were hoping that Floro could at least be kind of a sixth or seventh inning middle reliever type, and it just never happened.
Yeah.
If you look at his numbers, they're not horrible or anything.
He's just giving up too many hits.
Yeah, he just never got on a stretch that could kind of gain their confidence.
Right, yeah.
And it's tough. That's something that Baldelli and some of the players have talked about the last week or two, which is everybody wants to focus on, this guy's coming back. It's going to be great to get Brock Stewart back, great to get Paddock back, Buxton and Correa and Lewis. Well, somebody's going each time those guys are coming.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And to walk into the clubhouse and see Dylan Floro in street clothes saying goodbye 4 games before the end of the season.
Yeah.
Now, I know he hasn't been on the team that long, but that's the flip side and the downside to this thing. And we've seen it, and we're going to see it more probably. Each guy that joins the playoff roster is pushing someone off the playoff roster for whom that has been a lifelong dream, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's the downside of it. And then I mentioned Varlin, but for months the Twins talked up not only from the standpoint of Varlin, but from the standpoint of, well, how come you guys haven't made more bullpen moves? How come you guys didn't do anything in the offseason or at the trade deadline?
At the trade deadline, yep.
And they were like, look, yeah, that's fine. Valid criticism. We'll see how it plays out. But we think we're so confident that whenever we decide to press the button on Louis Varlin reliever, what we get out of that is going to be impressive. And I'll read you the numbers. He's now thrown 12 innings as a reliever. I think 5 or 6 outings, basically. And he has, let me read the numbers just to make sure. Louis Varlin, as a relief pitcher, 12 innings, 1.50 ERA. The only damage was the one game he gave up the 2 solo home runs, which was his second ever game as a reliever. 17 strikeouts in 12 innings and 1 walk.
Yeah.
And the velocity has gone basically from 95 to 98, topping out at 100. And I think even more impressively, like the velocity gets people's jaws dropping, and rightfully so. But his cutter, which wasn't even really a pitch he leaned on that heavily as a starter, but he spent the 2 months in AAA developing it, and now all of a sudden he's got like a 93-mile-an-hour cutter, which is basically like a hybrid, between a fastball and a slider, late movement, which is the Twins are big on late movement, which is why they like sliders more than curveballs. And so now he's just throwing 99 four-seam fastballs and then 92, 93 cutters that have sharp break late. And it's like he's just coming in, blowing people away.
I mean, you were just talking about 8th-inning guy.
Yeah.
He's got the 8th-inning guy stuff. Like you could easily now. I don't think they have that confidence. I'm not sure they want to put him in that role because that's just a different level of pressure, and it's too late to be doing that to somebody.
It's a lot to ask for somebody.
And I think they like the fact that he can also go 2 or 3 innings at times. Like that's also a weapon that you can use.
No, but much like Maeda, you think you know what the role is going to be, but then also you're in the battle, and it's like
exactly right.
Do we want to just bring Louis in here and throw smoke for an inning?
And then if they end up having enough success with him in that late inning role this year in the postseason, where everybody's like, boy, that Varlin, he really saved our butts in the postseason on a pretty regular basis next year.
That's the danger. He wants to start.
He wants to start, and they've had conversations about, listen, I'm happy to do it, but I'm a starter.
Right. And I don't blame him. I think he can be a good starter.
I agree.
But we've seen this with some rookie relievers in the past, Jonathan Papelbon, where they're a starter prospect.
Yes.
Francisco Rodriguez, for that matter. There's some other names, too, I'm forgetting now. But there's like a handful of guys, Jabba Chamberlain, same way.
Yeah, right.
Some of these guys, they're like, all right, well, you're a rookie or you're second-year starter. You got a lot of long-term promise as a starter, but we do need some relief help, and you're up against an innings limit or whatever. So let's just put you in the bullpen for October, and then 10 appearances later, you're in the ALCS or the World Series, and you go, this guy's effing great as a reliever. Like, do we want to even mess with anything?
Right, exactly.
Like, maybe he can be a third starter.
Yeah, just to be clear, he was bouncing between the 5th spot and AAA from all of this year. While he could be doing this. Right.
Yes, a starter is more valuable, just kind of apples to apples, than a reliever. Right. But an amazing reliever is going to be more valuable than just sort of an average starter, typically, or as valuable, especially in the playoffs. But yeah, I mean, I think Paddock, same way. Like, Paddock has essentially been told, you're going to be in the rotation next year.
Right. Yeah.
I think Varlin hasn't been assured of that. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he began the year as the 6th starter.
Yep. Similar to Ober this year.
But also, if they go on some deep playoff run and all of a sudden he's, they're in the ALCS and he's throwing 100 in the 8th inning, you're going to try to put that toothpaste back in the tube. It's maybe not going to go back in the tube, and we'll see what Louis thinks of that. But that, again, nice problem. Nice problem to have if they have it. Let me just add one other. Well, we got to finish on this note, John.
Okay.
Everybody's been talking about it in the press box for days now. I'm not even kidding. It's been the talk of the press box. And I don't even mean among the usual idiots I talk to. I mean people I don't even know in the press box coming up to me.
They want to
talk about this. John, we talked about this.
I'm a little surprised at how much imagination has gone into this. How many people have got the response on. I just put it on Twitter basically because I was like, I was going to do like a video or a TikTok on this, but it's too much of a pain in the butt. I'll just put a couple of notes about it on Twitter.
So like 2 months ago, you and I guess had been talking about this with somebody because you knew about it, but I didn't know about it. We got like a mailbag question about the 9 times 9 times 9 challenge.
Right.
And the idea is between the first pitch and the last pitch of a baseball game, Major League Baseball game, 9, there's your first 9 innings. You're going to eat 9 hot dogs and drink 9 beers at the ballpark.
That's right.
And keep it down.
And keep it down, yes.
Challenge. And so at the time, we were joking about it, who would be better, all this stuff. And your stance at the time was,
Absolutely not doing it.
I'll go and hang out and watch it and cheer it on, but why would I do that? That you'd have to be a moron to do that. You're going to wreck yourself for a week doing that. You're a grown man, adult, on and on and on.
Exactly right.
And then, as I understand it, that remained your stance right up until the time you were at the game, basically.
Basically, right up to the point where I was walking to the
What
game.
night was this?
This was Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, okay.
It was definitely Tuesday night because we went on a $1 dog day.
Oh, right.
To keep the price
That's
down.
Key, yeah. Right. Because otherwise it costs you $1,000.
Yeah, that's right.
You have to have a monetary privilege just to do this dumb thing on a normal night. Yeah.
Well, we could 9 beers, 9 family value beers, and 9 hot dogs is $54 total. That's not terrible.
Not terrible, yeah. So, yeah, John,
very, very full stuff.
Tell me if I'm wrong about this. So you went with a handful of guys and their significant others.
Yes.
Which, there's the real story. That a group of morons who, I think it's a good idea to do this, have somehow attracted significant others. I mean, we've talked about the miracle that is Chrissy.
About 4 months ago, we started talking about this, right? And the nice thing about talking about something stupid like this and planning on it for the end of the year is that it gives you 4 months worth of like baseball talk. You're at a baseball game and it could get a little slow. Somebody can just bring that up and you can start dissecting the rules and such. So we ended up, we had endless discussions about what was allowed and what was not allowed and the strategy and, that sort of thing. And so, on my way there, I'm like, all I had I had an apple for breakfast. I had a salad for lunch. I'm starving. And it's $1 Dog Day. I'm going to have at least $3 dogs.
Yeah, right.
What if I just tried 5? I'm going to try and get 5. And if I feel good enough after 5 that I could get another 4.
Right. Well, here's what people became obsessed with in the press box from like a strategic standpoint.
And that's what happened. I got through the 5 and
John
I got to have 4 more.
Ate 9 hot dogs by the end of the first inning.
That is correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Insane.
That was the strategy.
What a strategy.
Well, here is ultimately, I'll warn those of you who are thinking about attempting
Now,
this.
these are the smaller hot dogs.
Yeah.
Because they're the dollar dogs. They're not,
dogs.
dome dog.
They're not the big, they're the big dogs.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, these are smaller hot dogs, but they still they each have a bun.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming you guys were obligated to eat too.
The bun. That was part of it.
Like Joey Chestnut.
Correct. Yep.
So, John posted a picture. It wasn't even the end of the first inning. Bailey Ober was still pitching, I think.
No, I got through 8.5 at the end of the first inning.
All I know is you posted a picture of the empties, basically, of the hot dogs, like the thing it comes in, and you're like, well, there's the 9 hot dogs, and people were like, wait, what happened? He ate all 9? It's the top of the second inning. He's eaten 9 hot dogs. And I was like, yeah, that's my friend John Bodas. That's his.
I think we all. Of the 6 people who tried, 3 people finished, and I think the consensus is that's probably the way to go. Is to go with as many hot dogs as you can.
Setting a base.
You need to eat the hot dogs as fast as you can, so your stomach doesn't recognize that you're eating 9 hot dogs. Right?
Yes. Well, the hunger helps you.
That's
the
right.
hunger can still help you.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
You got to slam those down. So to the point where I got through 5, and it was like, but then. It was in the bottom half of the first inning by the time I'd gotten through 5, but the Twins had a really long, there's a lot of walks, and there was a grand slam and all this other stuff.
Well, they knew what was going on in the
Chrissy
stands.
was downstairs getting me more hot dogs, but there was a long line at that point. So I came running down like, I'm on a timer here. Like my stomach.
Can I just say, women are amazing. Think of what you just said.
I know.
My wife, my beloved wife of many years, was downstairs getting me my 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th hot dog so that I could eat them in the same inning I ate the first 5.
That's right.
Yeah. She signed up for that too, by the way. Like she wasn't legally obligated to marry this idiot.
Right, yeah.
Then
the family, the rule was that it had to be a beer that you get at the ballpark. Like we were trying to, right. And it turns out the Twins have this family value stand where you can get a Bud Light for $5. A Bud Light or a Budweiser for $5.
Yeah, you're getting whatever IPA.
Right.
9 of those is not going to go down.
Or the 16 ounce or 20 ounce, whatever,
but
Cabin Crusher, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we went, we spent a lot of time in that line trying to get the stuff and the challenge is, and the reason you want to do the hot dogs first, I think, is because the challenge becomes that of carbonation management. That you got those many hot dogs in your belly.
That's a lot of fizz.
You have even one hot dog in your belly and you drink a beer.
Right.
It's just going to create some gas.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a science experiment.
You
pour in a beaker full
and
of
your
something.
stomach is only going to expand so much. So there's just a lot of burping that's going on.
Well, you're predisposed to that in general.
Exactly.
No
right.
offense.
No,
you are.
I absolutely am. Right.
Yeah.
I think the fact that I learned in high school just to burp on command if I needed to, I think that helped me as a life skill.
But also the hot hot dogs are somewhat helping you. It's like you said, setting a base.
Right, but it also filters the alcohol a little bit. Yes,
but also they're very salty.
Yes.
So it is at least initially making you literally thirsty.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, I'm sure that goes away after like the fourth beer, but...
Yeah, I didn't have any beer before the 7th hot dog. I didn't have anything. I was just eating hot dogs with a little mustard.
So many great sentences. These are the first in world history. Nobody has ever said that sentence. I didn't have my first beer until the 7th hot dog.
And even then, 7th, 8th, and 9th, I just had very tiny sips of beer or something. Basically, I had 8 and 8/9 beers left to go when I finished the 9 hot dogs.
Then you put it into overdrive, though. Then you started to...
Yeah, but that's just a beer an inning. And that's
this was my point.
That's not
and I tweeted as such.
And for 12 ounces, that's...
The joke I made was, John thinks he's... So you accomplished it. Two of your compatriots puked and eliminated themselves from the tournament.
One puked at the game and one puked like later that night.
Right.
Yeah,
so is he eliminated after the fact? Then?
No.
He gets credit.
The rule was you had it didn't depend what time you finished. So if you finished
right,
I finished like midway through the 8th.
But you have to make it through the.
But you have to make it through the last out.
That I get.
At that point,
but if he wants to go home and throw up afterward, that's
fine.
That's separate.
Yes. No, he didn't. He bowed out and then still ended up throwing up later.
That's really sad.
Bad driving.
Here's the joke I made, which was, and not even really a joke, just, which is John thinks, and so you accomplished this.
Yes.
Accomplish I use lightly, but you accomplished it. But I was like, this is, Elias Sports Bureau has chimed in and said, this is actually the 5th time John Bonus has done the 999 challenge at Target Field. The first 4 of which were unknowing. He just did it on accident. He just happened to have 9 hot dogs and 9 beers. Yes. And then I also, of course, the easiest joke is, you had eaten a lot of hot dogs, so you decided to have fewer than your normal number of beers. At the game, settled on 9 as like a. But yeah, it's.
I'd never eaten 9 hot dogs before. That was the part I thought I would never do.
Well, yeah, we were all debating. People had different thoughts on which would be more difficult for them.
For me, it would have been the hot dogs. I thought it was going to be the hot dogs, and then it turned out not to be that.
My point with the beer, and I've kind of gotten off beer. I was kind of ambivalent to beer for most of my life. I got into it a little more because of you, because we would do shows at breweries, and everyone was always so lovely to us at these, and we would meet the people, and they'd bring us beer, and I like beer. It's fine. But I kind of got like beered out.
Yes.
And so to me,
I did not.
The idea of drinking 9, even like whatever, Bud Lights, is that what you said they were?
Yes.
Even drinking 9 Bud Lights, I've had 9 beers before in my life. It doesn't have the same appeal that it does to maybe some people.
Right.
And I'm not saying that like I'm better. It's just I never really. But also, just that's a lot of liquid, regardless of what. Right. Like even if it was just water,
it's a lot of gas.
Well, that's a separate.
So that was one of the other things that we've discovered. Is one of the guys came up with the idea of when you're drinking one beer, pour the next beer into a cup. And let the gas from the beer kind of leave. You want that beer to be a little flatter than normal.
What you guys really need.
And I was just drinking it out of a can. That was dumb.
Is something to like let the air out of your stomach.
Like
you needed like
exactly right.
Like a reverse tire pump.
Yes.
Like just to.
That is honestly that is the challenge.
Gross.
The challenge is all the gas that builds up in you. And
that is the challenge.
Like the one guy who threw up he threw up because he's like, I tried to burp and more came up. Like it was.
All right. Well, I apologize for this, but yes, people were coming up to me, and it's funny. And we both experienced this. I'm sure you've had some moments where you become like your brother's keeper when you've associated with each other for so long. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I'm sure you've had things where like, boy, Gleeman's a jerk. How do you put up with him? And your response probably is, well, I don't.
He's all right.
Attest to everything he does. He just, I don't. And the opposite happens where somebody will be like, why would this maniac drink 9 beers and eat 9 hot dogs? And I'm like, I just do a podcast with the guy. I'm not like his moral, I'm not his priest or something.
I thought you were going to say people were praising you. Like, I can't believe you get to work with a guy that got 9 hot dogs and 9 beers down.
You get to work with a guy who's on his 8th tweet about burping strategy at a baseball game. So yeah, there you go. The 999 challenge. I have a couple questions just to end on.
Okay.
Did you sleep on the couch?
No, I did not sleep on the couch.
Wow.
The next morning.
Did Chrissy have any hot dogs and beer? I'm assuming yes on the beer.
She had a couple of beers, but not a lot.
That's interesting.
And I don't think she had any hot dogs.
She was like an election judge.
Yes.
She was an impartial observer.
It's a king-size bed. There's a lot of room in that bed.
Okay, fine. And then here's my other question. I would ask this about beer, but it's an absurd question. When will you have your next beer? That's the next day, I'm sure.
I had it in the 10th inning. I had it
Right.
at Truly.
Just to
I had the Oktoberfest. I had an actual good tasting beer.
When do you imagine you will have your next hot dog? In
Yeah,
life?
well,
that's the question.
That was
Are
a
you
question.
off hot dogs now?
I
for a
don't
while?
think I'm going to have any hot dogs this postseason.
Right, because it's like
Certainly not the wild card.
I remember
round.
as a kid, you'd always hear these stories of a kid got caught by his dad smoking.
Yes.
And his dad made him smoke
Yeah.
the whole pack, and now he's off cigarettes.
Yeah, I went to Twins games the 2 games after that, both Wednesday and Thursday.
You
Did
didn't
not
have
have any
a
hot
hot dog.
dogs. I
Yeah.
did not have any hot dogs.
That's interesting.
I'd tell you the most interesting, the most worrisome thing I think about the day after is I felt better than I felt after some other Twins games. I've definitely felt worse in the mornings. Like I've definitely eaten more. I've definitely drank more. Like I was.
Well, that's why I said
I have definitely woken up feeling worse than I have that morning.
That's why I was like, I made this joke, but also it wasn't really a joke. To be like, this is not the first time he's just done this. I'm very confident that I could eat 9 hot dogs. Like that would not be a problem for me. I've certainly. Sometimes like once a week we'll get hot dogs as like the dinner option.
Okay.
At media dining.
Oh, okay.
And I'll eat 2 or 3 of them. Like I don't care. Right. Like 9 of them I could very easily eat, especially if I was hungry. If you did like Diet Cokes.
Right.
Yeah, but just the beer is. But Bud Light's closer to water, so yeah, I get that. Anyway, congratulations is what I'm saying.
Of the 6 people who did it, the 3 guys that didn't do it, as we were walking away, were strategizing about what they were going to do to accomplish it instead. What they were going to do different next year.
Oh, they're going to try to get.
And the 3 guys who accomplished it were all like, "There will be no next year."
I view it more as like you've taken a job as a kamikaze pilot. There's no second run. You know what I mean? Yeah. Either you succeed or you fail, but that's your only run. Either way. Do you know what I mean? Like you either did the 999 challenge or you failed, but there's no second. There's no second run. Because my feeling is if you do it and you fail twice and you throw up the second time, then it's a little sad. Then you've had a whole year, unless you prep for it, like a Joey Chestnut type, where you're like expanding.
Then it's even sadder.
Well, yeah, that is.
If you don't make it,
it's like when people train to climb a mountain. Is it sad? Well, they've devoted their life to something that didn't really help humanity or anything. But they did it.
Yeah.
So anyway, congratulations on the 999 challenge.
Thank you very much.
Sorry to Chrissy for putting up with it. Although at this point she knows what she's gotten into.
Yeah, that's right. She knew that. She knew this was a possibility 30-some years ago.
Just
she did.
The looks of the women who sit behind us in the press box, which is like social media row. And ballpark ops and all that stuff. Just as they were like learning details of this, and your tweets were on everybody's screen, and people were like, "Wait, what is this now?" And as I'm explaining it, they were just like, "And why?" Well, I don't have an answer for that.
I don't have an answer for that.
Why?
I don't know. I had no intention of doing it. Somehow I found myself doing it.
And people were like, 9 in the first inning. That really caught people by surprise. I think.
I think it's like climbing Mount Everest because it was there.
That's right. Why? Because it was there. It's good. Yeah. So anyway, congratulations to John. So the Twins clinched, and John clinched.
Yeah.
An early death probably, but whatever.
And clenched.
Yeah. I did see. It was funny. A lot of the tweets I saw in response, because you were tweeting out the play-by-play.
Right.
2 themes emerged from people who were not amused by it, and most people were amused by it. The 2 themes were. Well, it must be nice to have $500 to be able to spend on, But like you said, it's $50.
We broke that one down early. Yeah.
And then the other thing I heard, I saw people were like, "Well, congratulations on the alcoholism." Well, it's like, yeah, but also, if you can eat 9 hot dogs, you got that too. Like that's a problem, right?
Oh, I've got plenty of problems.
Yeah. That's you're not surprising John with that
for me, sure.
Well, right, yeah, that's right. I'm a 9 hot dog type of problem. Yeah. All right. So when next we speak to you on this show, assuming John doesn't have some sort of delayed reaction to this 999 show.
That's right. Yeah.
I did. Oh, and then the next day when I showed up at the ballpark, there was a lot of. Have you checked in with John?
Is he okay?
Is John alive? And I'm like, yeah, I think. Listen, I've seen worse, and I've seen him wake up better.
Yes, right.
I show up here some mornings, and I'm part of the appeal of doing this podcast is just kind of see the shape John's in.
Sure,
because he's tweeting out. It's 2 a.m.
The Patreon we did the day after the clinch.
Yeah, John was out till 3:30 with everybody. And he's like, "Yeah, we can do a show at 7." Ended up being 9. But yeah. Okay, so. Here's what I would suggest. We will be back Friday morning.
Yes.
Win, lose, or draw.
To talk about the series.
To talk about the completed series.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't sound like enough for you, which I would hope is the case if you enjoyed this show and you were not put off by the burping discussion of 20 minutes ago, go ahead and go to patreon.com/Gleeman, Patreon, patreon.com/Gleeman. Sign up and you will get like a private link, or you can just press play on that site and listen to the whole archive. But you will get a link that you can put into however Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you use podcasts. And then as soon as we publish or release an episode, which is usually within 15, 20 minutes of us finishing recording, it will get delivered to you just like you get delivered this podcast. Right. You'll get charged $1 for it, which I think is reasonable, less than the hot dog or the beer cost. And we'll be doing, definitely at the very least, we'll be doing one Monday morning to actually preview the series. Right. And then we'll be doing post games either that night or very early in the next morning after each of the minimally 2 and hopefully, well, the Twins could sweep 2. Minimally 2 and at most 3. Yeah. And then if they advance, same thing. Yeah. So we would love to have you join us. Like I said, we're like 100 shy of 4,000, which is just an unfathomable goal that we never even had to get that. So we would love to have you join our little private club for Twins Talk, commercial free.
It costs you a couple bucks.
Yeah. Patreon.com/Gleeman. If you don't want to, we'll talk to you Friday. Thank you to Game Time
and Odds Are and BetterHelp and Soda Stick. And we'll talk to you Friday.
Gleeman